This man gave 50 cents to a boy. 20 years later, a millionaire knocked on his door. Igor got up in the morning and checked on his sick daughter, Sonia, then left the house in a hurry to catch the bus. He does not want to be late because last month they were deducted from his salary because he was late for work, because he was with his daughter in the hospital. It's not sufficient for him to pay for the month's expenses. His daughter needs medicine every month, and he has to pay the rent and meet the requirements of his daughter, which he loves so much. The young man lost his wife, Vera, after 6 years of their marriage, after she was exposed to a serious health problem, which made him grieve for her a lot, as they loved each other very much. Vera was very beautiful and calm. She accepted to marry Igor, even though the latter was an orphan and had no money or family. She was the only one who encouraged him and stood beside him, until he found a job and was able to rent a house for them, and 2 years after their marriage, Vera gave birth to the beautiful daughter, Sonia. The spouses kept caring for and treating her until she was 4 years old. In that year, when Sonia reached the age of 4, Vera fell ill and turned out that she suffers from liver problems, where she suffered for a full 3 months and died in a recovery room inside the hospital, which caused the latter to collapse completely. The husband went through a difficult stage in his life after losing his wife, who loved him and who was his support in life, and he was finding it difficult to calm his daughter, who was demanding her mother every time. At first, he thought of bringing an incubator to his house to take care of her, but this little salary did not allow him to do so he left her at home and went to work. But when a girl is sick, he was anxious about her and is forced to miss work sometimes, and for this, he finds himself in a difficult situation. Years passed. Sonia reached 8 years, and the expenses became more, where Igor used to deprive himself of everything and buy for his daughter everything she asked for. This is why he sometimes has to borrow money from his colleagues. One day while Igor was returning home from work, a 10-year-old boy approached him, told him that he was very hungry and wanted to buy a sandwich. Then the man stood, put his hand in his pocket, and found that he only had $30. The man decided to give the boy $10 only, and keep the rest for himself because he was still 4 days left to pour his salary. He does not have the money. However, when the child was in a mass, his clothes were dirty and torn, and he was emaciated and shivering from the cold. He took all money and gave them to him, telling him it was all he had, then proceeded to the house on foot because he did not have a ticket to take the bus. The little boy noticed that the man had given everything he had and had to walk to his home, so he felt remorse. However, he had no other solution, so he immediately went to the snack shop and bought a sandwich. The man returned to his daughter at home and found her there waiting for him, where he immediately embraced her and brought her food and kept watching as she was eating. He was forced to not eat that day because the food there was only sufficient for his daughter, and he was impatiently waiting for his salary. Sonia grew up at the age of 16. The girl loved bicycles very much. She used to tell her father every time that she wanted to have a bicycle. Then Igor had to buy her a bike with money he had saved for her to pay for his studies at the university. Sonia went out on a bike every day and went far to wander as she reached the forest near the city. However, one day she had an accident on the road to the world after her bicycle collided with a truck trailer, fell to the ground and lost consciousness. She was then taken to the hospital, and her father caught up immediately after hearing the news. Doctors told Igor that his daughter suffered many fractures in her body and that her spine was fractured, and it's likely that she will not be able to walk in the future. Then the man sat on his knee and held his head with his hands, grieving for his only daughter. The girl remained in treatment for 2 full years, where she spent most of her time with her father in hospitals and private clinics, until she underwent the last surgery, which was not successful. Then the doctor asked her to go home and buy an electric wheelchair because she will not be able to walk again, unless she traveled outside the country and tried her luck there. Sonia was very shocked when she learned that the doctor said, and she stopped talking to others, as she spends most of her time in her room, does not want to do anything. And this is what made Igor greatly bemoan his daughter's condition and try to support her in every way. The father was aware that there's still hope for his daughter's recovery. If his daughter moved her to the country to undergo surgery in one of the Western European countries, because one of the doctors told him that some of those countries have significant capabilities and more advanced devices that they have in the country. That's why her chances will be stronger over there. When Igor compared the amount that was supposed to be paid for the operation that his daughter would undergo abroad and his low salary, he discovered that he had to work for decades to be able to collect it. So he completely forgot about that operation and gave up completely, as he bought his daughter a wheelchair and told her that she should adjust to her new life. Igor was able to help his daughter overcome that difficult stage in her life, and he supported her and provided all the conditions for her to study. And in the end, Sonia managed to obtain a university degree, and she remained looking for work. The young man refused to approach the beautiful, intelligent young woman because she was physically disabled. But this did not affect her much, even though she reached the age of 28 years. Young Alexander returned to the city in which he was born in order to open his successful chain of restaurants, which became famous throughout the country. The young man did not want to return to the city in which he was born because he suffered a lot when he was young, but he decided to come to her in search of a good man who had given him everything he owned one day. When he found him on the street hungry, he was adamant about thanking him and providing him with assistance if he found that he needed it, and for this, he searched for him and recommended his assistants to spread around the city and try and find him. Alexander, who was 30 years old, went to the street he used to live in when he was young, because he knows that the man who helped him lives in a nearby street not far away. And when he entered his store, he was surprised when he saw him there carrying a bag in his hand, and signs of depression was evident on his face. Then he continued to follow him until the man reached his apartment and entered it. Alexander waited a little at the door of the apartment, then knocked on the door. And when the man, whose gray marks began to appear on his head, opened the door, he immediately told him that he was the same little boy he had given him 30 rubles 20 years ago, and that he had come to thank him. Igor was surprised when he heard the young man's words and immediately remembered him, then invited him in to enter his apartment so they could drink tea together. The young man told him how he managed to become a successful businessman and became the owner of a luxury chain of restaurants in the country. And moments later, Igor asked his daughter Sonia and asked her to greet Alexander. As soon as Sonia appeared in her wheelchair, Alexander was surprised when he saw her mesmerizing beauty, greeted her, and then asked her father about her illness, and he told her Igor all the details. Alexander took care of all the expenses of Sonia's treatment as he took her to Germany and underwent an operation there, until she regained her ability to walk. Then he returned to the house of Igor while holding her hand and asking for marriage to her, and the man shed tears and was very happy with what his daughter had become. Alexander married Sonia, whom he loved at first sight, and gave her father the freedom to run his restaurant in the city. Then he took her with him and traveled to live in his luxurious home there in Moscow. As for Igor, he's earning a good salary and running one of the most luxurious restaurants in